Prince Harry is back in the news, as he often is, this time for saying during an interview that he has considered becoming a naturalized U.S. citizen, but that he's not exactly sure what that would entail. Well, I'll tell you. For one thing in the news now is he would be required to give up all of his royal titles. Another thing, U.S. taxes. A lot of misconceptions around what he would be subjected to as a new U.S. citizen. Today, we'll talk about Prince Harry and should he become a U.S. citizen. Here's the story from The Sun, fresh off the Prince Harry interview on Good Morning America, saying Prince Harry has said he thought about becoming a U.S. citizen, even though he would lose his royal titles. Experts say the Duke's shock revelation would be a final burning of his bridges with the country of his birth. Asked on U.S. TV if he would ever become a citizen in the United States, the California-based Harry said, "I've considered it. Yeah." So Harry said, American citizenship is a thought that has crossed my mind, but it's not a high priority for me right now, as it probably shouldn't be for any successful person. I'll talk to you in a minute about the often misunderstood tax implications of U.S. citizenship. Of course, Harry, 39, married American Meghan Markle, who is now 42. He would have to become a citizen, take the oath of allegiance, and to do that, hand over the Duke and Prince titles, according to The Sun. Comes after the couple rebranded as Sussex.com with a new coat of arms. Harry says he loves his life in the U.S. There were questions, and we talked about this maybe a year or so ago, about how he got the U.S. visa. And there was talk of, well, he admitted in the book that he'd used drugs, and a U.S. visa residence permit application requires you to say, have you used drugs? There are people who can't visit the U.S. that are British citizens just because, they got caught with pot, or they said, hey, yeah, I've driven drunk. I mean, they say, okay, well, you admitted it, so you can't be here. Obviously, if you admit it in a book and was found out you lie about it, well, there was some uproar around that, and ultimately nothing was done. But the other question is, well, on what status does he have there? Is he there as the spouse of a U.S. citizen? Is he there as kind of an exceptional talent? What is the actual visa status? At Nomad Capitalist, we help our clients move to all sorts of countries around the world. We generally help people leave the United States. So I don't claim to be the U.S. immigration expert, other than sometimes someone gives up their U.S. citizenship, and we have various attorneys and experts who help them potentially go back and visit or get residence permits to live there. And so that kind of brings me to the tax point. People think, well, if Prince Harry becomes a U.S. citizen, that will be worse for his taxes. The reality is his taxes are already in bad shape if he is a U.S. person. And there's 4 different ways to be a U.S. person. The most weird of them is just make a declaration that you want to be a U.S. person. And actually, we had a client a number of years ago that between all the 3 countries that he would have potentially had to pay taxes in, the U.S. was actually the best of the worst. And we looked into, well, he doesn't really live in the U.S. Can he just make a declaration? We determined, they probably wouldn't just, you can't just out of nowhere declare it, was the opinion that we got. And so that's one way. Okay. People generally aren't going to do that. The one way is to become a citizen. The other way is to be a green card holder, and we don't know exactly what his status is. Certainly if you're married to a U.S. citizen, you can get a green card. The other is simply to fail the substantial presence test, and that means there's a formula involved that over the course of any 1 or any 3 years, that you're basically spending too much time in the United States. And there's a number of ways that multiple people can get sucked into this tax system. I've seen people get sucked into the U.S. tax system. They're not residents of the country. I mean, depending on all that you have going on around the world, depending on what other countries' tax systems you have to fall back on, you could fall into the tax system of the U.S. just by spending time there. And so he's already spending time there. He's California-based, so the U.S. tax man, the IRS, has their clause in him. The California tax man, even worse, the FTB, they have their clause in him. The absolute worst tax authority on planet Earth to deal with. And so the situation, if you just, let's say, fail the substantial presence test, you just don't spend so much time in the United States. And this is not me giving you formal tax advice. This is just explaining anecdotally how it works. But you just don't spend as much time in the U.S. You just kind of cut your ties and, okay, hey, I'm not a U.S. person anymore. If you hold a residence permit that's a non-immigrant permit, which it's possible he has that, although if you have a non-resident permit, you have to convert to a residence permit, I think, to be able to get citizenship. But let's say you have a non-residence permit. I mean, just a residence permit in and of itself, let's say like an E2, doesn't necessarily mean you have to pay U.S. taxes if the time in the country isn't there, because it's a non-immigrant permit. If you have an immigrant, if you're a green card, for example, then you're paying U.S. tax. The only benefit there is that just walking away, like nobody really notices that. Hey, I spent some time this year. I paid my tax. Okay, thank you. Now I'm under the threshold. Okay, like you don't have to pay, no problem. That's normal. Even green card relinquishments. We've had a number of people who've relinquished their green cards we've worked with. And, I think that that's probably looked at a little bit more nicely. Okay, you had a green card. That's fine. Now, there's a long-term green card holder formula where once you get to 8 years, and any part of the 8 years, it's not 8 years to the day. It's actually just any chunk. I mean, so if you get a green card on December 21st, that 10 days counts as a year. So once you get to that long-term green card holder status, then you're treated basically like a U.S. citizen renouncing. I still think it's probably a little bit more warm and fuzzy in terms of how it's viewed, but the tax treatment's the same in terms of exit tax and that kind of thing. And in his case, it seems like a lot of his money's being made in the United States, but you might want to engage in some, pre-arrival, U.S. tax planning where you can kind of ring fence assets that you had before you come into the U.S. We've seen people who didn't do that, and then they were long-term green card holders, and then they ended up having to pay on stuff that they had before they even came to the U.S. because they didn't get that proper tax planning. So as you can see, like there's a lot of complications, whether you're coming to the U.S., and you can imagine if you were an American and you want to leave the U.S. and get out of the tax net and lower your taxes, which is primarily what we help people do, like there's a lot of nuance involved in this, and that's why we help people. We've got a network of tax attorneys, tax experts, immigration lawyers, and we put all the pieces for you together across all the different jurisdictions. You might need 10 or 12 different experts. If you want us to help you with that, you go to nomadcapitalist.com/apply. We've helped everyone from people with $1 million to people with a couple $1 billion, and everyone in between. And there is a nuance here that I think even some very professional firms don't really focus on. We've put all the pieces together for people. The bottom line is becoming a U.S. citizen does not make the taxes worse. I think it just takes away that warm, fuzzy feeling where you're able to walk away. If you become a U.S. citizen and then later decide, you know what, I want to go back to England, I want to go back to my family, and why do I need this U.S. passport? That's what Boris Johnson decided. He was born in New York, so he did not naturalize. He was a natural-born U.S. citizen. Boris Johnson could have run for president, but he left New York when he was 5 years old, and when he sold his flat in London, and the IRS came asking for taxes that even HMRC in the UK didn't want, he said, this is bollocks, and he gave up his citizenship. And so there's a number of Boris Johnson U.S. citizen stories that are very telling about kind of how this all works. Now, are they going to give Boris Johnson a hard time? Ever coming back to the U.S. on an S-2? Probably not. I mean, I think a person at that level or a person at Prince Harry's level, they're just going to let the person come back into the U.S. So the need for the warm and fuzzy feeling of, hey, I just lived here for a few years, but now I'm leaving. I no longer have the substantial presence test issue. Okay, nice. Or okay, hey, I've relinquished my green card before too long. Okay, that's nice. We understand. Like, I don't know that in the case of a person at this level, where there's still kind of a sentimentality about people in the political or the monarchy space, that they wouldn't be allowed to come back to the U.S. But Eduardo Saverin from Facebook gave up his citizenship right before Facebook IPO'd. He still paid a ton of taxes. Eduardo Saverin, interesting enough, born in Brazil, not a natural-born U.S. citizen. They did not, it was not because he was born in the U.S. that he became rich. They all went on a rampage after the guy a little over a decade ago, saying he should be barred from ever returning to the U.S. And I think he's a private person, but I haven't seen no evidence that he has. Maybe he has, but I mean, they really gave him a hard time. So if you're a business person, you become a citizen, you renounce, I think that's when it becomes much less warm and fuzzy and they start to get really, really frustrated with you. So the tax situation is no different in that case. Now, the other issue that came up years ago was if he and his wife are going to have joint bank accounts, even in the UK, even if they're living in the UK. I mean, if she's a US person, she's required to report those accounts on FBAR and potentially elsewhere. And that, if they had accounts that were shared, that would basically open up some of the royal family's finances to the rest of the system. So a lesson that if you are an American or if you're married to an American, but you've got a dual nationality household where one's American and one's not, having joint bank accounts could open that up to scrutiny. So the bottom line for Prince Harry, he could become a U.S. citizen. That would, be, as they say, the last burning of the bridge for his connections to the UK royal family in anything on paper. Does that really affect him in the way that we talk about? No, because he's already paying the taxes. The bank accounts would already have to be structured, properly to avoid, the Treasury looking into, having an eye into the affairs of the royal family. And I think that no matter what happens, they'll probably let the guy into the United States. But very interesting way to look at the nuances of how U.S. citizenship and U.S. taxation works. People think that if you are a US person, US citizen, green card holder, there's no way to escape the tax system. And there is not a way to escape the actual filing of a tax return, and in many cases, paying something. But you can still move overseas as a US citizen. You can keep your passport, and you can dramatically lower your taxes. Now, if you're a UK citizen, I see no reason why you'd want to add the US to the list to add that complication so that you could make your life in Dubai or Singapore any harder. But there are ways. Take heed, Americans, to legally reduce your taxes. We help people do that. You can go from 40% to 10. If you are Meghan Markle and you're married to a foreigner and the foreigner leaves the US, potentially you can get your taxes down to as low as 0. So there are ways for Americans to legally pay 0, but there's always nuance, and that's what we do here for folks. Go to nomadcapitalist.com/apply if you want to learn more.